Make bad art that sucks and isn't good. Make bad art that sucks and isn't good. If you want to get to a place where you are making good art that rocks and is good, the only way you can get there is by making bad art that sucks and isn't good. We live in the age of the internet, where everybody in the world wants to be an online content creator, maker, whatever the fuck, that has people watching them through a phone screen going, yeah, I am going to validate this person's efforts at a particular thing. It is the number one question that people tend to ask me when it comes to conversations about creativity and content creation. It's like, how do I get started? Like, how do I find the confidence? Like, how do I figure out the flavor of the things that I want to make or the person I want to be? And of course, the internet being the internet, there are plenty of tutorials, videos, examples of people trying to teach you how to be an online internetman in the most efficient way possible. However, a lot of these resources involve buying something expensive, paying for a course, or using artificial intelligence, which if you do, I'm gonna beat you to death with a rock. And sure, some of these resources might have some tidbits of value or a tiny little nugget here and there that you can use to create a more polished end product, but the real way to amplify your creativity and make the stuff that you've always wanted to make is to make bad art that sucks and isn't good. We are in a very strange place when it comes to the internet and its culture, right? It is a rapidly growing, ever-evolving thing, but it also hasn't actually been around for that long. Like, if you think about any other creative medium on the planet, the people who pioneered those artistic endeavors are most likely dead. Like, think about movies. Like, all of the oldest, most classical film actors I have ever seen are always rendered in black and white, which I can only assume means that they have passed and people are trying to be respectful. The painting has been a medium that's been around for decades and decades and decades, even before the advent of digital tools that made that shit so much easier. Just think about how powerful Van Gogh would have been if he had a Wacom Cintiq. But the internet is still very, very new. Like, the Smosh guys are still alive. The Penny Arcade guys are still alive. Markiplier is still alive. And that's even despite his run-ins with the LA gangs. And thanks to the ever-evolving medium of the internet.com, content is everywhere. Everybody's a content creator. Everybody's making stuff. Everybody's trying to be a YouTuber, a TikToker, an Instagrammer, a Twitch streamer. And because these digital creation tools that we have now are so ubiquitous and accessible, this sort of pushes on us this crushing weight of expectation. You, as a creator or as a young person, can't help but look at, the titans of the industry and think to yourself, why can't I be more like them? Like every big Twitch streamer that does nothing but yap in a chair for 8 hours a day making millions of dollars, all of them are just using a desktop computer and OBS. All of the YouTubers who are just reacting to Reddit posts and TikTok clips and raking in the cash are just pointing a webcam and a microphone at their face and just doing whatever. All of the biggest TikTokers in the world are pointing their phone camera at their face and just saying stuff. Or bouncing around half naked, which again is a totally viable strategy. And so I can't fault people for looking at these kingpins of the internet and thinking to themselves, man, I wish I could do what they do. I can't fault anybody for thinking that, even though the thought is dumb and wrong. 9 times out of 10, when you look at these people and have those kind of feelings of quasi-jealousy, you're not actually thinking that you want to do the things that they're able to do. You want to have what they have. Like, do you want to be a content creator, or do you want to be somebody who creates content? Do you want to be an artist, or do you want to be somebody who makes art? Do you want to be a writer, or do you want to be somebody who writes? Like, it's all well and good to have dreams of being a personality, or a celebrity, or being a name that somebody knows. But the vast majority of people who you are probably comparing yourselves to didn't get into this life because they wanted to be a personality or a name or etc, etc. They got into it because they enjoyed doing a thing. Or they were unemployed and needed a hobby, which is a definitely valid thing to do. But the only major difference between where you are now and where the people you are comparing yourself to are is just a wide valley of time and effort, and a whole lot of bad art that sucks. Barely anybody on the internet hits a fucking home run on their first video and then just keeps sailing on that fucking momentum from there on out. Like, that just doesn't happen. I mean, it happens sometimes, but like, it's not a reasonable expectation to set. Like, seriously, go to your favorite content creator and scroll back as far in their backlog as you possibly can, and try to watch the first ever bits of content that they ever created or uploaded. I can almost guarantee you, it'll be hot garbage. But just don't do that to any of my accounts, because I will explode out of shame and die. And here's the thing about making bad art that sucks. Making bad art that sucks is how you learn to make good art that rocks. The number one best way to learn anything is by doing the thing. Like, that's just true no matter what industry you're in. Except maybe like space stuff. I think there's a bit of like theory that you need to learn for that. And I'm not even talking about just practical skills that you get out of learning to do a thing, like learning to draw, or learning to write, or learning to paint, or whatever. Like, truly, the amount of stuff you learn by making bad art that sucks is staggering. I've been making content on the internet for years and years at this point, and in the modern era, you probably know me for my tabletop content, my fashion content, probably mostly those two things. But do you know where I actually got started on the internet.com? Webcomics. This book is the first ever printed collection that I made of my daily webcomic series, An Exercise in Futility. I made this comic every day for like 6 years. Every day I would draw a shitty little comic about penguins in the Arctic on the train home from either high school or university, and just throw it up on the internet. There's like 1,361 of these fucking things. This comic is one of the longest running and most creatively fulfilling things that I have ever done in my life, and 99% of people who follow me on TikTok probably doesn't even know it exists. Literally every aspect about my online personality can be traced back to this comic. Like, making this comic taught me how to be funny better. Cause like, I was making a joke every day. Like, it taught me the science behind jokes, like lead-ins, punchlines, the shit that makes people laugh. I used it as an avenue for reflection and self-expression. Like, in half of these comics, I'd always put the little penguin in like weird outfits or drag and just look at me now. It also taught me that companies and corporations aren't your friend and don't care about you. Like, I got screwed over from the company that I used to print these books. Like, they were rude to me, they charged me way too much, they were just a nightmare to deal with. It was so bad that I was selling these books at conventions and complaining to my table partner about how much of a nightmare this business was to deal with, and the person on the next table over, who I had never met before, straight up turned to me and said, "Printing company name?" To which I responded, "Printing company name." I also originally published this comic over at tapas.io, formerly known as tapastic.com. And it was great. I loved being a member of this weird online comics community where people were posting their comic strips and trying to make people laugh, and it was just a good mid-2000s internet time. Maybe like mid-2010s, I don't know. But then the entire company shifted their platform's priorities to being a more webtoon-like experience, and suddenly, daily comic strips about dumb birds in the Arctic just weren't as popular or valuable anymore. Like, there were frequent moments where my comic would be on the front page of tapas.io, or just on the front page of the comedy section specifically. That happened multiple times because of how popular it was. But then the entire site kind of shifted to more prioritize handsome men who maybe kiss. Like, the site used to feature, host, and prioritize things like Altered Comics, 4-Panel Life, like other funny internet comic strips, and now it's just all boy love. It was all boy love at the time. I wonder what it's like now. Let me Google that, actually. Okay, I'm just gonna read you a couple titles that I'm seeing on the front page of Tapas literally right now as I'm recording this. Surviving as the Illegitimate Princess. Life with My Loving In-Laws. The Glamorous Life of the Fake Mistress. I Stole the Tyrant's Virginity. And let me be clear, I have no problems with these kinds of webcomics or content. Like, you know, romance, spicy stuff. Like, it's a huge market and it's very popular. But when I was using the site, it was favoring comics like mine. And look, the company that ran the website just wanted to go in a different direction, and it's clearly been very successful for them. And the stuff that I was making just wasn't a priority for the site that I was hosting it from. And like, I can't be mad at them about that because they're a business. It is what it is. But I just want to highlight that as one of the biggest things that I learned making this comic that nobody really remembers. Businesses don't care about you when they're not your friends. And you know the only reason I was able to come to that learning? You know the only reason I was able to get that information into my brain? By making bad art that sucked and was not good. I have always been an advocate for making bad art that sucks and isn't good. And when I tell people this, one of the first things they always respond to me with is something along the lines of, yeah, but what if nobody likes it? What if it's not good enough for the internet? What if it sucks and people leave mean comments about it? And in response to this, I have to impart one of the most soul-crushing learnings that I have ever had to learn making stuff on the internet. They're gonna do that anyway. The first message I ever got urging me to kill myself was in response to a Steam guide that I made on Team Fortress 2. You'd think I'd get that in response to the Steam guide I wrote on Counter-Strike Global Offensive, but you would be incorrect. I mean, speaking of bad art that sucks, boomers have called me everything from an affront to God to a 20-somethings in cargo shorts and baseball caps have told me that I'm ugly and that my fashion content is shit. Alternative people have called me ugly and said that my fashion content is shit. Like, how are you out here with dyed hair and eyeliner posting office gifs in my Instagram comments when you look the same? It's happened like 7 times this month. I don't know what's happening. People have called me both fat and setting an unrealistic standard for body weight on the same posts. Even when I was making webcomics and drawings more frequently, people said I sucked. All the time. And that's just the stuff that I can mildly joke about, you know? Like, people have implied that they've figured out where I lived and have threatened harm upon me. Like, people have said that I should stay out of the states in which they live, lest I be exposed to a forthright beating. And so, like, I know how people out there on the internet can be, but, like, you can't let that stop you making art. It is pervasive. It is ubiquitous. It is just simply a matter of existing in the public eye on the internet. But you can't let that stop you. Like, I don't bring these up as examples that I am trying to garner sympathy for, or even just highlight them as things that are unique to me. These are things that happen. These are words that people say. Here is the way that I think about the internet, right? A post outlining a national tragedy or like a weather alert that impacts hundreds, if not thousands of people's lives is delivered via the same avenue as somebody posting the phrase, Duke Nukem cannot come, a thread, part 1 of unknown. Like, we all have the same tools on the internet. We can all post, we can all comment, we can all like and subscribe, or whatever phrase I need to say to make that little button down there glow. And the thing that I've had to reckon with myself is that if all 7 billion people on the planet have the access and means to post, comment, and engage online, then yes, you're gonna get some whack stuff. Like, you're gonna get some weird people, you're gonna get people who are just wrong or incorrect, and you're gonna get people who are just mean. And it's a sad fact of the matter, people are gonna say this kind of stuff. People are gonna leave those kinds of comments, and people are going to make that kind of commentary. But it's not being said to you with the authority of the national weather alert example I gave to you earlier. It's being said to you with the authority of the Duke Nukem Come guy. People are gonna say whack shit to you. People are gonna leave mean comments, people are gonna be critical, people are gonna be nasty. That doesn't mean what they're saying is real, and it also doesn't mean that you have to listen to them. Oh, what? You can't be critical of anyone on the internet anymore? I'm talking about people who tell me to kill myself. Shut up. But you know what has happened in response to every mean, nasty little comment that has been left to me on the internet.com? Absolutely nothing. Like, I was the villain of Dungeons & Dragons TikTok for a day when I made a video talking about how I thought it was cool and fun to make homebrew content for 5th edition D&D instead of learning an entirely new RPG system front to back just so you could play a pretend game with your friends, and people responded to me like I just murdered the guy who made Honey Heist. And that isn't even to say that all of the mean commentary that I've received is entirely unfounded. Like, when I first started doing makeup stuff, you know, I made some videos where it was like, oh, a man wearing makeup? Unfathomable! And looking back, it was like, yeah, that was kind of shitty, actually. And that was all very important growth to have. Growth that I would never have received if I didn't get out there and make bad art that sucked. Like, I tried new things, I posted new ideas, I did all this stuff, and I learned from it. And through all this, you might be thinking, Ethan, why are you focusing so hard on the bad art that sucks? Shouldn't you focus on the good things, the improvement, the mountains you climb, the other metaphor for success that I'm stumbling on? And I want to be very clear. I'm not encouraging you to make bad art that sucks so that someday you'll get to a place where you make good art that's great and you'll finally get to the end goal and you'll finally achieve your dreams and you'll finally have everything that you ever wanted. I'm telling you this because you're always going to feel to a certain level that you are capable of making bad art that sucks. Even if you get to be a prodigy of your medium, the absolute best, whether it's at drawing, content creation, videography, film. That last one is just filmed twice, I realize. No matter how good you become, and no matter how self-assured you become about the level of quality of the work that you produce, you're always gonna have days where you think you are making bad art that sucks. No matter how good you get, it's always going to happen. You're going to feel terrible about a project. You're gonna get halfway through a drawing and just wanna scrap it entirely and start again. You're gonna record a post, think to yourself, yep, this one's a banger hit right here. Sleep on it, load it up in your drafts the next morning, and then think it's just hot garbage. If you're a creative person, if you are somebody who makes stuff, no matter what it is, this is always going to happen to you. Nothing you do is ever gonna feel perfect, and it's always gonna feel like there's something better that you could do, but you just can't tell what it is. And that is why you need to make bad art that sucks. Because in some way, to some degree, you're always gonna think that what you're making is bad art that sucks. Maybe not in totality, but at least in part. You're always gonna see its flaws, you're always gonna see the things you don't like about it, because you're seeing all of it. You're seeing every inch, every atom, every pixel. And you know who doesn't see that? Literally anybody else in the universe. Nobody sees the depth and detail of the negative aspects of the things that you make more than you. It's your work, it's coming out of your mouth, it's in your voice, the voice that you have listened to in your head for ambiguously 20 to 30 years, depending on how old you are. And then you experience that with your eyes, ears, mouth, tongue, any sense that's relevant to the thing that you're making, and you sense it. You pull it into your senses as somebody who has developed taste and understanding and critical thinking over however many years you've been alive. You are going to see every flaw in the thing that you have made because you have made it. That's just how it works. But that doesn't mean that it is any less worth any other creation that is out there on the internet, in the gallery, or even just experienced by a handful of people. When you make stuff, like truly sit down and make something, whether it's a video, a piece of content, a drawing, literally anything, you are taking creative energy from within yourself and putting that out into the universe. And you know what? It's not going to be perfect. It might not even be great, it may not even be good, but once it's out there, once it is out there in the world and being exposed to other people, being understood, interpreted, being ingested, the things you learn from that are invaluable. And if you are somebody who dreams of making good art, you are not going to get to a point where the art you are making can ever be considered anything close to good if you don't pump out a bunch of bad art that sucks and isn't good. And you know what? Maybe it's just you. Maybe you're the only person who sees the things that you make and think to yourself, this is bad art, that sucks and isn't good. Maybe there'll be somebody out there who will enjoy the kind of thing that you're making, the kind of content that you want to create, the kind of voice and opinion that you want to air out into the universe. Maybe you're not alone in enjoying the idea of that. And isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that what creativity is there for, to express yourself and connect with other people? How are you possibly ever going to do that if you sit in your room not doing anything because you're too afraid to make bad art that sucks? So take it from me. Make bad art that sucks and is not good. Make bad art that sucks and is not good. And with every piece of content, with every creation that you manifest with nothing but your mind and your own bare hands, you will get one step closer to creating art that you think is good and rocks. And who knows? Maybe the people who are exposed to it will think that earlier than you do. Yeah,